Welcome GRD132 W1, and this assignment is actually one we did in Graphic Design 1, but we're going to do it here because it's a good assignment to get used to the font categories. And I already recorded a video in the fall, but I never edited it, so I'm going to use some of that video, but I'm going to start now in my GRD132 My Warren workspace. So if you go to coursework, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go to coursework, and you're going to scroll down to Unit 1, and you'll see ex1 font categories. Now that wasn't open initially, but it is now. Now you can do two things. You can either click on the assignment or you could click on the link here. Let me just go into the assignment first because that's where you're going to turn it in. So click on the assignment, and if you scroll down, this is a link that's shared with you. I created it and I'm sharing it with you, and you're going to save it into your Figma account. I'm assuming you already created a Figma account, and I'm actually logged in. And I'm logged in here, and I'll probably close up this window, but I'm logged in so that I don't have to log in again when I open up the file. But even if you weren't logged in, you could log in after opening up the shared file. But let me just show you what you're going to do. So you're going to come in here to ex1. This is the shared link. Just click on it. And it'll open up in Figma, and it'll say view only, which means you could only view it. But you're going to work on it. And this is the shared file that I'm sharing with you, and you're going to make it yours. So if this opens, then I don't need this anymore. So I could close this tab up and just keep this tab open. Now what I want to do is save it to my account. So I could go here under this arrow. You see this arrow here next to view only? Go here and say duplicate to your drafts. And it'll say open down here. And then click on open. And it'll open up the file. Don't worry about any of this stuff. And because I give it just a general file name right now, what you could do in here is go to rename, and instead of having last F, put your last name first initial in here, and get rid of copy too. You could go over copy. Let me go again. Rename, and I'll highlight over this and copy, and after the dash, just put your last name first initial. That's all you have to do, and then just hit enter. And now that's say your drafts. Now drafts is just where your files are stored. And from here, you're going to follow the next part of the video. And then when you're done, I'll show you what to do as well. But the next part of the video is one that I recorded in the fall, and it should be the same. So just follow what happens there. So if you see something that has a different EX name, or I mentioned something that's related to the fall, that's okay. But the next part of the video should be the same thing. And then at the end, I'll show you how to turn this in. And what we did here is we basically just made our own little worksheet of categories of fonts. We started talking about the main categories of fonts, but we basically have serif, sans-serif, slab serif, script, and decorative. We basically have 5 categories of fonts for the most part that we're going to be working with and being familiar with. Obviously, serif and sans-serif are the kind of workhorse fonts that we'll work with. Serif being more body copy, sans-serif being more small copy, being more headline, whatever. Now that's not for designing logos, that's pretty much for reading. So we're going to go over some of these just so you have familiarity with some of these from Google Fonts, because when you go here you're going to have this like gigantic list of fonts from here, and you're not going to know where to go. So I'll kind of show you where to look through these a little bit and where to classify these a little bit. And where you could go is just go to Google Fonts. You could just type in Google Fonts and search it, and it'll take you to the Google Fonts site. Or at least it'll take you to a link to the Google Fonts site. Here it has about Google Fonts. And we don't need about, but I can click on that if that comes up. It's saying about. I'll close this up because this is when you select fonts for web pages, so I'll close that up. And I'll just click right here on Google Fonts, and it takes me to the main page. And it's showing me all these different fonts here. Now what we want to do, especially for this one here, and I'll zoom in a little bit so it takes up my page, we have a serif font. Now this is not a serif font. This is Open Sans, and it's 20 pixels or 20 point. And we want to find a nice serif font. And I could tell you, oh, use Crimson Pro or use something else, but you might as well look for yourself. So I'm going to go over here to categories, and I'm going to uncheck all the other ones except for serif. And I'm going to sort it not by trending, but by popular. And we have Roboto Slab, which right off the bat I'll cross off the list because it's a slab font. We're going to use that for a slab font. Playfair I usually avoid because there's some fine lines in here that are more of a modern kind of style of font that I might want to avoid. Now we want to use fonts that have lots of styles, variable, whether they say variable. Now what does that mean? If I go to variable here, it has 400, it has 500, it has semi-bold, bold. It keeps getting heavier here. So that's what it means when it's talking about variable. So there's usually more than the regular. They even have italic here that you can see. So it means there's not just a set group of fonts. It means there's different weights, and they also have italic versions of them too, as opposed to just having maybe 4 styles or 6 styles or something like that. So let me uncheck that now. So here you can see what they're showing by variable. So if I wanted to see the black, I could look at that one there, what the black looks like. I could look at all those. And here they are down here. Here's the styles. Regular, there's 400. They're showing the italic, and going all the way up to the 900, which is the black. So that's a nice typeface. I probably wouldn't use that much. I'd probably move on from Playfair because of the fine lines in there. Merriweather looks a little on the heavier side. Here's PT Serif. That's a nice one. Laura's a nice one. This only has 4 styles, but that's fine. That's like a Times New Roman kind of setup. Here's Sans-Serif Pro. That's a nice one. I think they show Crimson Text. I really like Crimson Text and even Crimson Pro. And I might even choose, I think I chose 2 of them to kind of have as kind of go-to serif fonts. So I think I chose Sans-Serif, and I'm just looking at them here because I can go here and go down to my list, and if I want to put this in Sans-Serif Pro, I'll go here to where it says Open Sans, and I'll just type in, you got to type it fast, Sans-Serif Pro, and put it in Sans-Serif Pro. If you want to put something in italic just to see what the italic version looks like, because serif fonts have a really nice italic, I'll go here, regular, and go down and put it in italic just to see how the italic looks, how it's curled up, different characteristics about it. Sometimes I'll even hide this over here so you don't see it, but this doesn't look too bad on my laptop right now. Sometimes in class on the projector, I have hardly any room here. Now, if I want to copy this, I could hold down Option or Alt if you're on Windows and move this down here. And as my second choice of a serif font, I liked Crimson Text. So I'm going to put this in Crimson Text. I'm not sure of the difference between Crimson Text and Crimson Pro. They're very similar. I'm not sure if Crimson Pro has the cross W's like that, but it's a little more fancy. Probably not the best word to use, but it's a little more formal, a little more old style because of that. But still, it's a nice font, so let me try that. I'll go to Crimson, so I'll start typing Crimson. Let me put it in Crimson Pro. Oh, you can see the Crimson Pro W doesn't have that decorative W on it. And if I use Crimson Text, it does have more of a fancier W. So it's a little lighter, a little more formal, I guess I'd say. And probably a little more made for print, a little less made for the web. But either way, Crimson Pro, Crimson Text, they're both very similar. They're both very nice fonts. They both have nice italic fonts here. A little smaller overall in terms of the distance of the X height. Here the lowercase letters are a little bigger. Here they're a little bit smaller. And that's why everything looks smaller overall, even though they're the same size. But those are 2 nice serif fonts that we want to work with. And Crimson Pro could be one. Laura could be one. GRD132 could be one. GRD132 would be very similar to this Crimson Text. And Libre Baskerville, I wouldn't use that because it only has 3 styles. But Laura is a nice one. It's variable, has a lot of different styles. Looks a lot like the Sans-Serif Pro, maybe a little bit lighter. If you squint your eyes, it has a little bit of a lighter feel to it. But lots of nice fonts here, and I'm just kind of looking at the popular ones in here. Now, there's lots of fonts in here. There's lots of ones that are slab. They mix in the slab fonts, like Arvo's kind of a slab serif, and we'll talk about slab serif, but these are some nice fonts just to start with. And then we'll move on to our sans-serif. So I'll copy this, and let's just look at popular sans-serifs before you just take my word for it. Sans-serif and Open Sans, it was already in Open Sans to start. There's Roboto, which is a nice sans-serif font. It has 12 styles. Montserrat is nice. It's a little more decorative, a little more kind of unique. Lato is nice with 10 styles. And there's Source Sans Pro if you want to stay with the Source family, because they have the Sans-Serif and this is the Source Sans. I think I did that. I think I used this one and Roboto, but there's a lot of good ones here. You can certainly keep Open Sans. You can see it's a little wider, a little more spacing in it compared to this. This is a little more condensed. So I'm going to put this in Roboto. And there's Roboto, and that's still in italic. I guess I could leave that like that. And I'll bring this one down here, and I'll put this one in Source Sans Pro. Remember, sans means without serif. So whenever you see sans, it means without those little feet on there. And we talked about that in class. I'm not going to do the whole thing now because this video will get really long. But I'll go in here and make this Source Sans Pro. There's Source Sans Pro. And you can see it's a little more smaller in stature, a little more lighter looking overall than Roboto, which means it might be a better font to use for screen copy for a web page or something. Just has a little bit of a lighter feel to it. Might be easier to read than something that's a little bit heavier. But they're two nice sans-serif fonts, Roboto and Source Sans. And then for slab, I had already identified in our serifs, if I go back here, they don't show just slab serif, they show serif. And you just look for fonts with kind of the blockier kind of serifs on here. Roboto slab, they might have slab in the name. Some of them have slab in the name. Sometimes they don't. If you go down here, Arvo doesn't have slab in the name. Slabo has slab in the name. Zilla Slab has slab in the name. So, you know, any of these that you want to look at, I always mention Roboto slab, but if you go down and you check out Zilla Slab, that's a nice looking font as well. And maybe I'll use that one. Maybe that'll be my go-to slab. Zilla Slab. Should be easier to find when I type in Zilla. There's Zilla Slab. And I might put it in a little bit more of a bold font so it looks different. Now it's showing mixed because I have an italic in there, so I'm going to go here and find bold. Now they don't have a black. Roboto Slab has a black, has a little bit of heavier one here, so if you want something a little heavy, you could put it in Roboto Slab. But you get the idea of what we're doing here. This is a slab font with these big blocky kind of serifs on here. This is a kind of an old style font here. There's a lot of angular kind of things going on where they're kind of going on angles like that. Even the italic, but these have kind of a lot of angles going in that direction. It's almost like calligraphy, where if you had a pen that had an angle like this and you were writing with it, it's going to be thinner when you go in this direction, and then when you come down, it's going to get heavier. That's what's happening here. It's thinner, then you come down and it gets heavier, and you go side to side. Even if you were drawing this with a pen, you kind of go up and make an angle. Here it's thinner, then when you come down, it's going to get fatter. If you ever used kind of a wide, broad nib pen or calligraphy, or did any calligraphy, that's what this font is kind of based off of. And old style fonts are kind of like that, in italic even more so, because they're on kind of a natural angle, which people kind of will write at more of a natural angle. Usually, it's usually harder for people to write straight up and down, although people will try. So anyway, getting back here, the last two, script and decorative, we don't have to do a lot with them because, you know, they're used more for designing logos or for headlines and things like that. So there's not a whole bunch, you know, that you don't have a regular one you're going to use all the time. One thing I'll mention about script, you're either going to have formal or informal. So if I go here and go back to Google Fonts and search handwriting. Now they'll call it handwriting. Now there is display too, which you'll see script fonts and display, but basically this dancing script, that's more formal. This is a little more casual. This is obviously casual. This is kind of a mix. This is obviously casual. You know, some are more formal and less formal. This is a little more formal. This is a little less formal, and so on. You know, some look like handwriting, like somebody just wrote a note or whatever. But there's a lot of really nice script fonts that Google Fonts has. Great vibes right here. It's a great one. When you see the alphabet, it's not going to look as good because it's meant to flow together. Dancing script is a nice one. Lots of nice ones. That's why I started using Google Fonts in the first place, for doing design work, for finding nice script fonts. And you'll even find a lot in the display category. Sometimes the fonts will connect, sometimes they won't connect. This looks like Comic Sans a little bit, but either way, let me go find one just to use. I think I like the Great Vibes is a nice one. A little more on the formal side. And I'll go here and I'll put this in Great Vibes. Now I'll copy this down here and I'll choose Great Vibes. Great. There it is. Came right in Great Vibes. Now you can see in that point size, in that pixel size or point size, it looks a lot smaller because the lowercase letters are a lot smaller. They usually have very decorative capital letters. Let me zoom in a little bit more here. and it definitely takes up a lot less space. And you can see capital letters are very hard to read. You don't want to be using initials for companies because they're meant to be one capital letter and then a lot of lowercase letters. So don't ever use capital letters with these because they're really hard to read. On their own, it's hard to even make out what some of the letters are. It's hard to make out that that's a T, because it has a very kind of decorative end on it that looks like a J. So that's more of a formal type script. We can have casual type scripts or handwriting type fonts. I'll just call them script, whether it's handwriting or whether it's something formal. And decorative could be anything in between. And usually with decorative, there could just be one style. So I want to point that out. So if I go to display and I uncheck handwriting, now you might see some script versions in here, but most of these will have one style. Even this one, you'll see alpha slab 1. You'll be like, well, isn't that a slab serif? And yes, it is, but it has one style. So it's not really slab serif because there isn't really a family. This almost looks like a modern serif font with very thin lines, but there's only one style. So they're all considered display because you're only meant to use them probably for headlines and logos and things like that. You won't use them for any body copy. Even lobster here, even though there's 4 styles. What are there 4 styles? I didn't know there were 4 styles of lobster. And I guess they're just weights. They get heavier, I think. Oh, they do have an italic. I didn't even realize that lobster had an italic because they're... it's kind of a script anyway, but I guess they do have one that's a little bit more on a slant. But any of these are meant to use kind of in certain situations. And I think there's one I like. Are these popular? Display. I think I had one I liked called Luckiest Guy Forever. Let me make these a little smaller and see if I can see some more here. There's Bangers, which is a kind of a cool one. Sometimes if you go smaller, they'll show more. I'll look for Luckiest Guy, and if I can't find it in the next couple of seconds, I'll just use it because I use that in class. Anyway, I'll use it. I don't want to keep scrolling here. But I'll make a copy of this, and I'll put this in Luckiest Guy. Unless you want to use Bangers, I'll put Luckiest Guy here. And it's kind of a cool font. It's in all caps. It's kind of a fun type font. Obviously something you wouldn't use for something real serious, like a law firm or bank or anything like that. It's kind of a fun kind of font that looks nice, not with a lot of copy because there's a lot of little fine lines, but it would look better big. If it had a poster kind of display or a big headline display or even part of a logo with just a couple words, 2 words, 3 words, that's about it. And then you could use a sans-serif or something to contrast with it. But that's a kind of a nice example of a decorative font here. So we have Luckiest Guy, we have Great Vibes, we have Zilla Slab. You could have used Roboto Slab. For sans-serif, we have Source Sans Pro and Roboto. And then we have Crimson Text and Source Serif Pro. So those are kind of our examples of our categories, which we're going to be talking more and more about as we learn more about typography, because we can't learn design without typography. It's a big foundation of everything we do, and we want to make sure that we can design with type first before we start throwing in icons and pictures and all kinds of things in there. You always want to be able to design logos with type before you put an icon in. So anyway, once you're done with this, what you can do is just share it. You don't have to save. You already saved it to your drafts. So to turn it in, you're just going to go up here to this blue share button and click on share. And you're just going to copy link. Now it should say anyone with the link on here. Not that it says only people invited to this file. Make sure it says anyone with the link. So we're going to do copy link, and it'll say copy to clipboard. And then you're going to go back to My Warren and go back in the same place that you were. Now this might have closed out. But you're going to go into coursework, into the same assignment. Now this is the shared file. So just leave this alone. That's the one you originally opened. And what you're going to do is go to add comment. And you're going to click on add comment. And you're going to go to the link icon, insert link, because that's what you're sharing, a link. And you're going to click here and you're going to paste it here. And you could do Command V if you're on Mac, Control V if you're on Windows. You should be able to paste a link, or maybe you could right click and paste it. And you're going to have that link there. And I'll also ask you to change current window to new window so that when I click on the link, it opens in a new tab. Because getting back and forth out of My Warren can be a hassle. So we're going to do save. And that's what it's going to look like. And you should see your file name in there, ex1, font categories, Figma, and your name. And then hit save. And that's it. And this is the file that you turned in. This is the file that was originally shared that you clicked on. And this is the file that when you and this is the file that you turned in. So then I will come and look at that and make sure you did that. Now again, this is just a practice, just kind of getting used to font categories, and we did this in Graphic Design 1 as well. But for typography, this is another way to get used to it, and also to get used to Figma for those of you who haven't used Figma before. So it's kind of a little practice that you can actually open a shared file and share your own file and kind of work with that. So if you have any problems with Figma, let me know, but that's all you have to do for that assignment for our ex1 font categories assignment.